only thing is, if they don't wear it, you can't do anything.
What the heck?
I'm
I'm teasing David.
You'll lose.
All right, I think we're ready to roll.
Now, this came in the mail for you.
We're right on time.
Thanks, David.
Is it money?
All right.
Unmarked bills will know.
We'll call our meeting to order. Today's June 25th, and this is our regular monthly Scott County Fiscal Court business meeting. Appreciate you all being here. Appreciate your flexibility. We're going to be streaming to YouTube today, as well as we have some presenters joining us via Zoom, and we will show those presenters from a video screen here in the courtroom. So appreciate you being here, and we do have a lot of business to attend to, so we'll get to the agenda, and I'll ask Stacy Hamilton to call the roll.
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison? Mr. Burke?
Here.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Here. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. It's hard to believe that we're here at the end of June. Time is rolling along. With that said, next item on our agenda in your packet were the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any questions or comments in regards to those minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Kelly Corman to approve. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, in your packet as presented were the transfers. Any questions or comments in regards to those transfers?
Saw one transfer. Did we have a little bit of money left at the park for Great Crossing?
Yeah, just kind of what we held back and went ahead and paid that off before the end of the year. And there's still a couple things out there that we need to that are, in my mind, are warranty issues, and we're working on them as we speak. But it felt like it was appropriate to go on and do that. Any other questions, comments?
Motion for approval.
Motion from Mr. Wallace. Is there a second from Mr. Livingston? Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 6 on your agenda is bills and hand checks. Any questions or comments in regards to those as presented? Is there a motion? Motion from Mr. Lyons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we're going to be joined by Mike Woolham with Strand, and we're going to have a discussion about the Great Crossing Dam, and he has some evidence from a study to share with the court, and we'll have a discussion with him. And then we're also joined by our colleagues from Fish and Wildlife, and we appreciate them being here as well. And I'll turn it over to Mike right now, and then let Mike speak, and then we will ask any questions or have a conversation about what Mike has to present, and then we'll get a report and some, just share some comments from our colleagues at Fish and Wildlife. So Mike, if you could go ahead and start, we sure appreciate you being here and appreciate you taking the time to present this information.
Certainly happy to be here, Judge Covington and members of the court. Can you see my screen presentation on the Great Crossing Park Dam Improvement Options Review?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, we're here today to basically provide a brief overview of the investigation that went into the Great Crossing Dam evaluation SRAM completed in conjunction with Marine Solutions to share our findings and then also to just be able to be here to respond to any questions that you all may have from the report that I think has also been distributed to the members of the court. What you see here on the cover of the slide, you see a photograph of the dam. This photograph was taken back in October of last year. I guess probably at about the height of the drought that we had last summer, and you still see that there was a small amount of flow coming over the center of the dam. So we were able to very visibly see the condition, and I think the condition is what was present sparked some of the concern over needs to conduct a review of this structure and the potential needs for some sort of a repair or improvement approach that might need to be employed. And so, okay, there we go. So first I want to just talk a little bit about some of the features of the dam. You should be on slide 2 now. This is actually classified as a low head dam. It's just based on its height and the fact that it's designed to overtop on a fairly on regular basis, I should say, where the water, you see these all over Kentucky in streams, and this one is located just upstream of Stanton Ground Road, very visible at Great Crossing Park. The structure itself, the dam structure, is approximately 200 feet long, and it actually extends a distance upstream from the downstream face about 14 feet, and there's a concrete covering on the upstream side of it. So it's a fairly sizable structure, although we don't necessarily know what it's comprised of entirely underneath that concrete. On the front face, you can clearly see stacked stone, and stacked stone extends all the way down to bedrock as you can see in the photograph on the lower right hand corner of the slide. Approximately 7 feet above the downstream water surface elevation is the extent of the concrete fascia on the dam. You see that also in that photo where some of it is actually deteriorated over time. And then the overall height of the dam from the solid bedrock, the downstream toe to the crest is approximately 11 feet on average over the entire width. It actually dips a little bit in the center so that during low flow conditions, as you saw in that previous photograph, flow concentrates in a smaller section of the dam, and I guess that helps aerate some of the lower flow, during the lower flow condition times, aerate the water as it drops from one pool to the next. This structure actually impounds about a 2.6 mile long water body that extends from the dam almost all the way up to nearly US 25 there at the city limits. And you can see in the photograph, I'll try to just show with my little cursor here. In the photograph, you see the little cursor kind of circling. That's where the dam is located at Great Crossing Park. And then it extends all the way upstream this pool past Cane Run, the golf course, all the way up to the city limits right here in this area. So it's a fairly sizable pool that it impounds, and it has more than 50 acre feet of storage volume. And the significance of that is that certain types of dams have to be permitted if they meet certain thresholds from the dam with the State Division of Water Dam Safety Section. And this dam actually would trigger that if there were reason to permit this through that agency, because it does exceed, it's estimated to exceed that 50 acre foot threshold that currently exists in the pool. And this dam actually has about 155 square mile drainage area that extends all the way up into Fayette County. So it's got a fairly sizable basis of flow in the stream, as you all, I'm sure, have seen over the years. So as a part of this evaluation, there was actually a field inspection of the dam that was conducted with the assistance of Marine Solutions, which is they're an underwater inspection, design, construction company that engages in these kinds of projects all over the eastern seaboard, based in Nicholasville. And as a part of the, I guess let me back up. Just when we had authorized their work, there was very little flow over the dam, but right shortly before they mobilized to do the inspection, there was a rain event that actually caused more flow to actually go through and along this stream reach, and so consequently it was a little more difficult to see the phase, and so some of their ability to inspect was somewhat limited because of the turbulence on the downstream side of the dam. But we were able to get a fairly a good perspective of the condition. And along the structure crest, this is the top part of the dam. There were some small cracks. There was a spall. That picture, if you can see it in the lower right-hand corner, is right where the water, you're looking straight down on the top of the dam there, where there's a large spall where the crest, where the water actually breaks over the face of the dam. And you see some of this type of condition in different places along the crest. Along the downstream face, there were, I guess, aggregate, there were probably over 100 square feet of spalls that extended approximately 4 inches maximum in the face of the dam. And you can see some of that very evident in the photograph in the upper right-hand corner. On the downstream toe, this would be at the base of the dam where the water spills over the structure. From the water level down is stacked stone type construction, and that stacked stone was found to be undercut just based on the turbulence created over time, through the flow over the dam. And what was found there, that there's about a 2-foot section, a vertical section along about half the length of the dam where there's been undercutting underneath the dam, approximately 3 feet, extending 3 feet from the upstream face into the structure itself. The dam is actually about extends 13 feet upstream from that upstream face, so it does have a fairly sizable mass. But at the same time, this undercutting has actually compromised some of that material. There is a scour hole near the center of the dam where that dip occurs, and it actually extends down about an additional 2 feet. And so you have conditions like this that are currently present on the structure. Based on the inspection that Marine Solutions conducted, excuse me, they basically said they did not see any immediate concern for risk of failure, but obviously there are some needs for maintenance and repairs that they would recommend, I guess, that be pursued, subject to, I guess, availability of funding and that sort of thing. So as a part of the evaluation, we were asked to look at different options. And so some of the options, obviously, as you consider how you might want to potentially repair or upgrade this structure, if that were to be undertaken, the rehabilitation options included basically just addressing the scouring on the toe of the dam, the undermined toe protection option, as we call it. With this particular option, flow diversion would not be required. This would be something that you could fairly easily address if as needed. You would utilize grout bags, like a sock. It's like a flexible sock that you would sort of push into the cavity. You would actually pump grout into those bags, and they conform to the shape of the void. And this was a very environmentally friendly way of doing this type of water-based construction that minimizes impact to the environment. And this one was estimated for this solution approximately $150,000 to $250,000. Another option that was explored was to maybe look at complete downstream face removal and reinstallation. This was a little more comprehensive, obviously, because they would be basically fixing that very deteriorated face condition in addition to the toe protection that would be done in the other option. This would require some geotechnical review and some structural design, and there is a potential to put in an enhanced aesthetic application on the face if you opted to do that, and the estimated range was cost was about 1.15 to 1.65 million, just depending upon how far you went with the actual implementation. Two additional options that were evaluated included replacing the existing structure. This would be essentially constructing a new dam. This would be a much more complex solution. There is actually the county, we found through this study that they actually did this back in, I guess it was in 1999 for the Robinson Dam. And so there was a fairly recent example where the county had undertaken a project like this, and we basically estimated a similar application in this location would be somewhere between 1.7 to 2.5 million if you were opted to do that. And then finally, a fourth option would include complete removal or demolishing of the existing structure. This could be done full or partially, depending upon how you wanted to approach it. There are ecological and safety benefits, and our friends at Fish and Wildlife may want to speak to that when they present here about how they view these kinds of projects. There are some potential for short-term impacts to water quality impacts in a removal project like this, and then obviously, if you do remove the dam, there are some social and economic impacts for diminishment of, I guess, the boating potential for this right now with the ramp and the fact that you do have that as a benefit to that particular part of the recreational community. The cost to remove the structure is probably it's much less than the full rehab, and also the replacement, and estimated at $750,000 to $950,000. Other considerations that you would want to be mindful of as you pursue any of these options, obviously, is that stakeholder engagement. Obviously, this is in a very highly visible location. It also, the dam sits within the Great Crossing. There's a historic designation for this area because the dam is believed to be part of an old mill site that was there many years ago, I think dating back to the early 1800s. There would also be a number of agencies involved as you pursue any kind of improvement within the waterway of North Elkhorn Creek. I've listed those here: Kentucky Division of Water, the Army Corps, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and then also certainly Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And they're a stakeholder for many other reasons, as we found out. And one of the things that we did, and you all may have seen this in the report, we did a query on property owners along this reach of the North Elkhorn, and I think we found like 30 property owners. But then, to our surprise, as we spoke, we reached out to Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and while we did not find that they had ownership based on the GIS information that was available with the city and county, they basically indicated that they had taken over this dam, I guess it was in 1934. So we found through this evaluation that Fish and Wildlife currently does actually own the dam by virtue of a transaction that occurred many, many years ago that was unbeknownst to I guess most anyone currently involved in the city county government. And so that kind of leads to the last consideration is dam ownership and maintenance responsibilities. And obviously, as a dam owner, these two things go hand in hand. And I think one of the things that we were able to do in our, I guess as part of our efforts in conducting this study, is that we did have outreach with the folks at Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And so there was good discussion. This report has been shared, and I think that's why they're represented here today. And this is probably a good segue to bring them up or answer any questions that you may have regarding the investigation that Strand completed. So with that, I'll answer questions, or if not, we'll turn it over to back to Judge Covington to bring up our next speaker.
Yes, Mike, I greatly appreciate you sharing your report, and if anyone from the court has any questions right now from Mike, Mike would certainly be willing to try to answer.
I've got one question, Judge. Did they hear me on? Yeah.
Chad Wallace has a question, Mike.
Right now, Mike, thinking in terms of the longevity of the dam and its current condition, can you get, I know there's lots of variables, but is there kind of a prediction of how much life, in your estimation, the dam still has before there is a severe breach in the dam? You get all that?
Obviously, that's a very difficult thing to predict. I will say that we tried to see if there was some historic knowledge of, because it does look like the dam had some repairs completed on it over the years, but I think the current folks that work in city county government, I don't think there was any recollection of any recent maintenance, and so we don't know how long this condition has occurred over time, and obviously it's somewhat unpredictable. But right now, if you think about the dam, it's got what appears to be a 14-foot width, and approximately 2 to 3 feet of that has been undermined to date, which would be about 20% of it. It appears that there's still a fairly sizable portion of the mass that's in place, but I don't think anyone would be able to hazard a guess at this stage. But I think based on the conversations that we had with Marine Solutions, it did not seem like there was any imminent or near-term potential for that kind of an outcome. But again, you just don't know based on what kinds of storms or runoff events that Mother Nature may throw at this area of the country. So it's a hard one to predict. But I do think in Fish and Wildlife, I think we'll be speaking a little bit on possibly on some of the other low-head dams that they have in inventory and what they see more broadly around the state where they have interest in these kinds of structures.
Mike, with what you shared, that's what I was going to, Paul Wilkes and Mike Harden of Fish and Wildlife are with us, and I greatly appreciate their time and willingness to come and share the information that they have to share. But their inventory, they manage many dams. I would venture to say it's in the thousands across the state, and we just thought it was important that the court hear from Paul and Mike as well, and get some input from them in regards to the status of the dam, and just get an update from them. So either Paul or Mike, whoever wants to start, I really appreciate it. And Mike, thank you for your report as well.
Yeah, well, Judge Covington and members of the court, thank you first and foremost so much for having us and inviting us into the conversation, and really appreciate the initiative you all took to go ahead and reach out to Mike at Strand. And Mike, thank you very much for taking the time to do that assessment. As Judge Covington said, we do We have a lot of dams across the state that we have either ownership or maintenance requirements for. A lot of the ones that are higher risk are typically your reservoir dams. So a lot of our state-owned lakes, several are near you, Corinth Lake, Gist Creek Lake around the central Kentucky area. Those bigger dams like that are typically your high risk because it's a reservoir. There's a lot more water backing up behind them. And then also, honestly, this is an issue with these low head dams on places like the Elkhorn and the Licking River that really across the Commonwealth are coming up as, these were put in that had an intended purpose 50, 60 years ago. They're not necessarily meeting that intended purpose anymore, and they're also coming upon their lifespan. They age. They're an asset like anything else, and they have a set and fixed lifespan. I'm really glad to hear that this one doesn't appear to be in imminent danger to fail. And I guess what I would also want to share with you all is that for us, we have seen a dam or two like this fail. In fact, one bigger than this on Green River that was not in our control, but was a low head dam. And the good news is, in that case, it was a very slow dewatering, and it wasn't a catastrophic event, but instead a slow undermining. And also the scour holes were enormous. Mike Hart could probably give more details on the size of those. And so that does give some comfort. I'm really glad to hear, the thickness of this low head dam and the size of the stream that is in. It does seem like we have some time to make a decision, and there's no imminent danger. With that, in terms of options down the road, I mean, just to be honest, at this point in time, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these low head dams no longer meet their intended purpose, and as such, there are often a lot of recreational, ecological, and really safety reasons that it's more beneficial to have them removed. Because of that, there is federal funding, limited federal funding that is a possibility to apply for removal efforts. And I appreciate the efforts by Marine Solutions to get an estimate for that. The removal projects we have been involved in previously, we have been able to do the removal substantially cheaper than that. And the benefit to removal is that at the end of the day, there's no more ongoing maintenance costs with this. As mentioned with Robinson Dam, in the late 90s, the renovation was done, but there's the continued maintenance cost of that facility. Obviously, though, with that, there is a whole lot of outreach and discussion that has to go in before any sort of potential removal is considered. But at this time, that is the most common course of action on these low head dam facilities because there's money available and because in a lot of cases, since it's not meeting that intended purpose, it's really unfortunate the constant safety concerns that go with having these out on the water. And it's a discussion that we're having at other locations on the Elkhorn as well. But I guess with that, Mike Harden, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, Paul, I think you captured it. I think it's a bit of reassurance for folks that are worried about a potential failure that we were able to witness the failure of the Green River Lock and Dam 6. And that failure was not unlike what we're starting to see happen here that Mike described is undermining of the toe. But in that case, it was much more evolved. The size of the hole down there was about the size of a house. And when it gave way, it was not a catastrophic wall of water going downstream. It was a slow dewatering, a metered, controlled dewatering. So I think that should provide the court some reassurance and that something of an emergency nature here is probably unlikely at this point.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate both you and Paul and Mike Woolham as well. Court members, do you all have any questions for Paul or Mike Harden? Any feedback on anything that you would like? And it sounds like to me at this time it's just that Fish and Wildlife will continue to, do assessments and keep updated on the condition of the dam and keep an eye on it, and we'll just move forward. Is that correct, Paul and Mike?
I think that's very fair, and if the court, if you get calls and you do see developments or concerns that we aren't aware of, feel free to reach out and give us an update, and we can all continue to watch and see how it develops.
Okay.
So the plan is right now to do nothing?
Paul, Bill Burke, you might not have been able to hear Bill, but Bill's question was the plan right now is to do nothing to the structure of the dam and just continue to assess and observe. Is that correct?
At this point, because we haven't, I would say, I'd feel comfortable saying if action were immediately necessary, if we felt like from the engineering assessment that there was some imminent failure and we needed to make a move, I would guess our recommendation would err towards a removal. But there is a whole lot of discussion that both, I think, the fiscal court would want to have and the public would want to have before that's an option. So at this point, yeah, I would recommend that we continue to keep an eye on the dam and see if the scour hole gets larger, and just to keep an eye on it.
Okay. Bill, you have any other questions? Anyone else?
Judge, I'll just say that.
Chad Wallace has a question.
Well, I don't have a question. It's more of a statement that my constituents have reached out to me and said they want to keep the dam in place. And so, as far as looking at a removal, my constituents have voiced to me that they don't feel like that is a solution. So I guess unless there's repair to the dam, that we don't, at least in my opinion, we should entertain the option of removing the dam based on feedback I've gotten.
I agree with Chad, and just driving by the park often, the activity is above the dam, not below it. The pool water has a tremendous value to the communities.
Very well. Any other comment or question? Okay. Mike and Paul, we appreciate your time, and thanks so much. We'll move on to our next agenda item.
Judge?
David Livingston has a
I don't
comment.
have anything for them, but I was going to ask would the court be okay with moving 16 up to be the next agenda item?
I have no problem with that.
I do, as I mentioned, I do have a conference call from work that I've got to take at 10 o'clock, and I'd like to be part of that discussion.
Rand Marshall's here.
No, we can do that.
Dean
That's
is
fine.
here, and Chris
Yeah.
Israel's here.
So Chris Israel and Dean Hart have joined us on the Zoom and virtually in the courtroom. So we're going to, at the request of David Livingston, and certainly we'll support the request, we'll move the Bluegrass Regional Radio Network discussion up in the agenda. And just to give the court background on this project, I have attended several meetings along with Mike Hennigan, and as well as representatives from Georgetown, Andrew Hartley, Chief Swanigan, and those meetings have been centered around a proposal from our colleagues at Madison County, Judge Taylor and Chris Israel. Yes, sir.
Judge, you want to go ahead and tell the guys at Fish and Wildlife they can go?
I think they're.
I think they figured it out.
Yeah. But our colleagues at Madison County, Judge Taylor, Colleen Cheney, and Chris Israel have been part of the conversation as well. And essentially, I shared with you the documentation related to the proposed interlocal and how that interlocal could be navigated going forward with Scott County as part of it. Mike, I value Mike Hennigan's input on behalf of the court. This is an area of his expertise, and he works quite a bit with it, and he's been part of the new radio, I would call part of the new radio system transition team. And I believe Dean Hart is with us, and Chris Israel is on there as well. So just what I wanted to present, I think as judge, it's my job to bring the court all the information and let the court review that information, digest that information, and then the court can decide how the court would like to consider to move forward. Dean Hart, who is the consultant on our interlocal agreement and project with the city, and he works with TUSA. He is prepared, and I shared that with you all, just an overview of what his recommendation would be. And, needless to say, this is of utmost importance. And a lot of thought and a lot of effort went into the original plan for the current project that's about to be completed. But at the same time, when I'm presented with a proposal, we have to look at it, and I think there's great merit to having a regional radio network. There's a lot of positives, and I would like to ask Dean to start and give us, an overview of what his assessment is, and then I'd like to ask Chris Israel, and I'd like to ask Chris Israel of Madison County. He's the Director of Technology for Madison County and has been instrumental in putting together the Bluegrass Regional Radio Network proposal. I would like for him to give some input about the genesis of it, the positives of a potential regional radio network, and then we can have questions. Does that sound reasonable to everyone? And then I also want to ask Mike Hennigan to give us some input from his point of view as well. So, Dean, thank you for being with us. Can you hear me, Dean?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for your time and expertise.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Chris, how you doing? I'd like to start with just sharing with everybody the county and the city of Georgetown have always been in great favor of this regional radio network. In fact, when they issued their RFP, the initial configuration of the radio network was to be a joint system with University of Kentucky. And as the contract got finished and we reached out to Chief Monroe and the university, at the time Chief Monroe could not commit to doing a long-term service plan that's required in this to keep these cores in sync. One of the technical challenges of a regional radio system is when all the cores tie together, they have to stay in the same software updates and the same hardware updates according to Harris's technical policies. So that was one of the things Chief Monroe and the University of Kentucky couldn't commit to initially. So the system looked to still have the microwave link into the University of Kentucky, and they would do another technology called ISSI that didn't require these technologies to stay in sync. So since then, we've obviously got into the next step, which is where Madison County and the University of Kentucky are looking to partner with Scott County and Georgetown for this regional radio system. Again, I think everybody's in favor of it. However, I guess the biggest challenge that's in my mind and probably everybody else's is breaking apart the cores in Georgetown, Scott County, and relocating one of them in Madison County. We don't really understand why they want to do that. And I mean, I think it's led us to where we're at today. And that's what kind of led to the report that I'm glad the judge shared with you. And I guess really at this point, I'd like to just sit there and answer questions and any concerns.
and try to alleviate the concerns to still moving towards a regional system, but not at the point of breaking apart these cores. That's really our challenge and our concern.
Hey, could you share with us just give us a description of what a core is? And if you did that already, I apologize. But just for the court, just to, describe what a core is, and then why is it important, to have an interconnected system of cores. And like right now, we have 2 cores, and that gives us redundancy. If a tornado came through and destroyed one of them, then it would just fail over to the other one, and our system, our 911 system, would continue to work. Correct?
Yeah, so core is really the main computer brain of the radio system. It's where all of your users get input. It's where your talk groups and how you talk to each other get input. And there's really 2 configurations of a core. They'll call one high availability, and all of your computer servers reside in one rack at one site. Then they'll also call it geo-redundant, where they split apart that high availability, and one set of the core is at one site, and another set of the core is at another site. So if something happens there, either tornado, power outage, or whatever, you've got another core in another location that can support and continue to run your radio system and keep the radio system on the air. So in the configuration that Madison County and UK was proposing, one of your geo-redundant cores would be taken out of Georgetown and relocated in Madison County.
And part of that proposal was that they were leveraging federal dollars from the CSIP that would they would compensate Georgetown, Scott County. I think the last figure I heard was $750,000, and that they would move that core to a hardened facility in Madison County. And our friends in Madison and in the UK, put together that configuration, and they felt like that was the most optimal. And Dean, as you can read on his assessment, has concerns about that. And Mike Hennigan, who I have, I value Mike's input. Mike's put a lot of time on these issues. I wanted to ask Mike to share with the court what he felt about the 2 proposals, and let Mike talk about concerns. Some of the concerns that we talked about, these cores are connected by microwave link right now, and we've set those up, and it would be that would be the practice going forward if we join the BRRN. But we've also talked about the potential of having a redundant connection with fiber. That's still not been ironed out, and I'll ask Chris Israel to talk about that later as well. But Mike, can you give us some input about your thoughts about the 2 proposals and your concerns about anything that you've seen and what your thoughts are? And do you think there's value in being in a regional radio network as well? Could you answer that?
Sure. Definitely value in being in a regional network. It would be fantastic to be able to drive from Rockcastle County through Grant County on same network, able to talk to our dispatchers throughout. That would be a fantastic operation. And I believe everybody that's been involved in this discussion is in favor of joining the regional network. Our concern is the relocation of the 2nd core. The radio program for Scott County that we're just about to wrap up and put live, we started talking about this and designing it in mid-2016. Took us 18 months to develop a RFP so that we could go out to bid. And all the times that we put together our system, it always included the 2 cores. the old EDAC system that we're replacing that was end-of-life emergency replacement type deal that you guys have all approved replacing and paying a great deal of money for, was very isolationist. There was one method for them, for the 911 center to talk. If the towers fell or if the repeaters failed to act, 911 was essentially talking radio to radio using portable radios, taking most of their functionality away. And what we built into the new system was a way for the 911 center that's over on Bourbon Street, if they have a catastrophic failure, 15 minutes later, we're right back up and running with them using the same equipment that they're used to using. Got the same consoles, the same radios, everything, with the exception of the furniture, everything is identical. By taking away the second core, we're putting those new consoles at my place out of service, essentially. We're just taking them back to a radio to radio. Our core in our facility supports that backup 911 center. It also would support the permanent 911 center if for some reason their core went bad. But it's an interchangeable, essentially seamless transition. And that's what we tried to build out for Scott County. To go ahead and move that core now, just as we're about to bring our new system online, makes no sense to me. I've tried to run all the scenarios, if we do it with microwave, if we do it with fiber. And I'm sure that, it's probably 10% or, maybe even less than that chance of the catastrophic failure that would put us out of business. But I'm just not comfortable with the point of view that if we do this and move our second core, when our first core lays down, we're back to the radio to radio using backup radios at the 911 center where we were 3 years ago when we said it was an emergency.
I want to clarify, we're not talking about just relocating a second core. We're talking about selling
Correct.
a second core, which is two different things. We're losing total control of the second core. We're not just moving it to another location. We are losing that second core. And so my question on that would be, if we had to buy another core, what would that core cost? Because that core was in a package that we spent $10 million on. So what would that second core cost? And if you're talking about connecting to that core via microwave or via fiber, what does fiber cost to run, and who's going to pay for that as well?
Right, and these are all concerns that we've been trying to iron out since December of 2019 when we first started having these discussions with UK and Madison County.
And David, I think Chris Israel can help give some input to that.
Okay.
And then there was also discussion about contracting with Harris if we did go with that option, which that the conversation could be that we asked to lock in a price. Say the BRRN, we joined, we sold our core, and things were all great, and then it fell apart. Which, I don't. But you never know. But you have to talk about it. The conversation was that there could be a locked-in price to replace it and put it back in. And that was a part of a discussion. I'll let Chris talk about that. But the bigger thing is that both Mike and our colleagues at Georgetown, Chief Swanigan, Andrew Hartley, neither one of them are in support of selling the core and moving in that direction with that option. But I do believe that Mike and our colleagues at Georgetown would support moving forward with ironing out a few things with the second option of not moving either core and joining the regional radio network. So I'll let Mike finish, and then I'll call on Chris Israel to share and try to answer any questions as well.
Can I make one more request real quick? We've got a summary from Tucson.
Correct.
What I would like is some kind of summary document from Madison County and UK as to the benefits for them and how it benefits our own citizens, since we're the ones that designed the network.
Yeah.
We didn't.
And
We-
David, yesterday, and
I want stuff on paper,
I'm
not
pretty,
just the discussion.
well, but I'm pretty sure I shared an implementation plan, and in that implementation plan is the direct benefits to Georgetown, Scott County, direct benefits to UK, and I'm 99% sure I did share that. And I shared several emails yesterday.
Right.
But as I said, today I didn't want any action.
Right.
I just wanted to start the conversation. And this is so important that, in my mind, we have to, we certainly cannot mess anything up. And a lot of effort's gone into what we're about to finish now. We just got to make sure our next steps are solid. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yes, sir.
Judge, I know David's limited on his time, but back to the core issue, I think it's a big issue. Just to get an understanding, so way I see it, Scott County's in a pretty good position. We spent a lot of money, done a lot of planning, and we're in a pretty good position. I mean, going forward, we're in pretty good shape. There's a lot there. Does Madison County, their maintenance core, they don't have one? I don't know where they're.
Well, they're trying to, and I'll let Chris.
I don't understand that.
Chris, can you hear me? Chris Israel?
Yes, sir.
Can you answer that question and then kind of just do a overview of the conversation that we have had from your all's perspective, and then Rick's specific question was, Rick, go ahead.
Just about the need to move the core to Madison County, and does not UK have 2 cores as well, or did I not see that?
Could you hear that?
You're correct. Madison County currently owns 2 Harris cores. University of Kentucky owns 2 Harris cores, and you guys also own 2 Harris cores. The idea was brought up to try to regionalize the system, to reduce equipment, to cost share for everybody. But hey, Judge, real quick, I just wanted to mention that I've got Judge Taylor from Madison County on the call with us, and Dustin Heiser, our EMA director.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to punt it over to Dustin to let you hear a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing. As he alluded to, Judge Covington did, we have federal dollars from the CSEP program. So I'm going to let Dustin talk a little bit just about why we're doing what we're doing and how we can utilize the money that we're receiving to benefit the entire region.
All right. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Dustin. And Dustin, your role in Madison County, could you just share that with everybody so they know?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for having me on, Judge. Thank you to the rest of the court. Like Judge said, my name is Dustin Heiser. I'm the Emergency Management and the CSEP Director for Madison County. So as part of that, Madison County Emergency Management CSEP runs the radio system for the Madison County communities, Richmond and Berea, and the University of Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky University. So what happened, and to answer some of the questions I think that one of the magistrates has, as we looked at this, so a vision of my own from Madison County to EM, and then bringing Chris on from IT, and then as we communicated with the University of Kentucky and Chief Joe Monroe, was a regional radio system. And what happens here with the CSEP program, we have basically endpoints for all the items we have. We have life cycle costs and life cycles for equipment and things of that nature. So our radio system is at the end of its CSEP life cycle, which means we have been awarded federal dollars to replace our radio system. We currently have a 2-core system, which is antiquated. It was actually one of the first Harris systems that was out there and required 2 cores. So as we look at this, CSEP needs has awarded us the dollars to have 2 cores. So as we looked at how do we regionalize and how do we benefit the partners that we want to regionalize with, we started putting these things together, communicating, Chris and I, and then eventually Chief Monroe. And I know this has been a vision of Chief Monroe's, as I think Dean had already communicated sometime in the past. And as we looked at this, we looked at, okay, we have these federal dollars, how do we benefit not only ourselves from this new radio system, but how can we regionally benefit others? Because let's face it, these radio systems are expensive. They do have about a 20-year life cycle, and we also need to reduce our operating costs as well as prepare for a future replacement in 20 years. So as we looked at that, we started communicating, and Chief Monroe was on board, and then we wanted to communicate with Scott County, Georgetown. What we proposed initially was to purchase those cores from Scott County or Scott County, Georgetown, as they had 2 cores, and then one from the University of Kentucky, which they also have 2 cores. And I know Chief Monroe is on board. We are planning to purchase his core and move that into Madison County. What it does is this whole system in the VRRN allows us, the big benefit to responders is interoperability. I know Dean alluded to ISSI, and that's basically a way that you could link radio systems together, but there is a yearly cost to that. There's an upfront cost and a yearly cost to that as well. So we wanted to try to do things to minimize costs for the future. We have the funding. The funding's available to us. Federal dollars are here, ready to be spent. So we want to maximize the potential of those. And I know there's some communication of who was going to pay for fiber, who's going to pay for connectivity, who is going to pay to bring the cores all up, because I think Dean correctly stated that I think the initial issue maybe with UK was, hey, all these cores have to be at and I'm going to use basic terms, I'm kind of a basic terms kind of guy, they have to be at the same level. They have to be the same type, same software rev, you name it. So what we're proposing is Madison County with the CSEP dollars would do this. I have communicated this with our VEMA partners in the region and at headquarters in Washington, and they are on board. They want to leave a legacy for our community as well as the region to make things sustainable past the end of CSEP, which we will see here in the near future. So as we looked at this, we said, okay, what can we do for these other communities if we purchase their cores? We could provide them list price for a core. And I think that's as Judge Covington had stated, that's where the $750,000 roughly came from, was the list price for the core. And then we would also pay for connectivity from Scott County to UK and UK back to Madison. We want to do that redundantly because as anything, as I think Mike had stated, you can lose one piece, and the way we do that is we want to get fiber one direction, and excuse me, but they're actually multi-directional, but have one line of fiber from Madison to UK to Scott, Georgetown, and then Scott, Georgetown, back to UK, back to Madison with a microwave shot. We want to pay for those microwave shots because we know that's what truly is going to allow the regional radio system to work and not have to use ISSI, which in the end actually costs our governments and our organizations more in the long run. So that was where we came with this. We do not want to take any capabilities away from anybody. Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, with the new systems, the radio system is actually controlled, and there's 3 controllers in Georgetown, Scott County, correct? And the cores are how you update and reprogram and how 911 communicates into the radio system. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you're saying two different things. So you've got controllers that are simulcast. So Georgetown Scott County has a 6-site simulcast system, and there is 3 levels of control to keep that simulcast system working, even if the cores are gone. And so then they've got the 2 cores. Again, the cores sit there and allow them to use their broadband technology beyond. It allows them to put in all their database subscribers in the radio system, their groups. It's effectively, it's like 911 putting in a telephone number to allow a call to start coming into 911.
Okay, yeah, so that was our understanding as well, communicating with our consultants through the chemical stockpile program. And so we didn't want, by taking the core away, I want to let the court know that we didn't feel like we were trying to take something away from you. We were trying to look at this, if we relocate that core to Madison, we purchase it, relocate it to Madison. We also have a tower site that is actually in Rockcastle County. We would relocate UK's core to Rockcastle, and those are interchangeable. But allow us to have that geo redundancy, so that if we had a large disaster in Scott County or Georgetown, their radios would still be able to operate through the entire system, because you have those 3, unless you knock out all 3 of those, Dean, as I said the name of it now, I was drawing blank. Controllers. Thank you. The 3 controllers. Yes, it is true that you may reduce or lose some capability from 911, but I think there are some. We communicated with the vendor. I think the same vendor that Scott County, Georgetown is using, as well as our consultant. That there might be other ways to work around that. But that is where we came from. I promise you, we're not trying to come in and push things on you. That's why we want to talk to you, and we appreciate you having us today. Additionally, what we thought with this is, if you guys need feel that you need to keep your core, we'll still move forward. We still want to be partners. I think that's what's proposed in the, and I don't know if Judge Covington has passed around the interlocal. I know he stated he may not be quite at that point, and I understand he wanted to communicate to the court first. But that's what we communicated in the interlocal is, hey, Scott County, Georgetown, would like to continue to own their 2 cores and keep those in Scott County, Georgetown. We would still work and purchase one from UK and purchase another, so that we have that future growth. The other thing is the reason we're looking at 4 cores is if we were to pay Scott County, Georgetown the $750,000 roughly for the core, we had communicated with the vendor, and they had stated that there was possibilities of setting set prices for a number of years so that you knew what that would be, and that would remain intact if there was a divorce in those first couple of years, understandably, as well as this system. By going regional, this is why we were such a proponent for it, and I'm glad to hear that Georgetown and Mike and the Scott and Judge Covington are for it too, because this allows us to potentially bring on other entities in the future. There's counties surrounding Scott County. There's counties obviously surrounding Madison. There's plenty of areas surrounding the University of Kentucky that are potential partners for the future. And all those potential partners help us as these communities and these organizations to reduce our costs years down the road and to set us up for a 20-year replacement. So that's all I have, Judge.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope that what we presented gives the court a picture of what is on the table. And I think that we're in agreement that no matter what, regional radio system is something that we should really look at and the court should really consider. Dean has laid out what his recommendation is, and Mike has, about moving forward and essentially Georgetown, Scott County, University of Kentucky, and Madison meet with AMK and Harris and essentially just lay out the technical and the implementation plan and then iron all that out and move forward. And that's what I would like to see happen. But are there any other questions from the court? I hope the court understands the proposal and why Madison and UK was proposing it the way they were. They were trying to leverage federal dollars. Just the concern from Georgetown, Scott County, and from Mike Hennigan is the moving one of our cores would not be the wisest thing in their mind to do right now. And, sometimes you can find a path where you agree to disagree and you just move forward, but you do, in the end, you do what's best for everybody involved, which is, possibly entering into a regional network. If no one else has any questions for Chris or any of our team from Madison County or from Dean, then we'll move to our next agenda item. If Judge Taylor's on there, can you hear me, Judge Taylor? Judge Taylor might be doing something in the background, working on something for Madison.
No, yes, sir.
There he is.
I'm here, Judge.
Well,
I appreciate you. No, I think it's just a great opportunity for all of us as we look at financial restraints that we have in government today. Anytime that we can better all of our citizens, I think it's just a great opportunity. It's always great to have these type of discussions to making sure that we're doing what we need with taxpayer dollars and trying to do a better job for our citizens. So I really just appreciate the conversation, the involvement with the UK, with Madison and Scott, Georgetown. So looking forward to whatever happens in the future, that we'll continue to work together.
Hey, I appreciate it, Judge. Thank you very much. And I appreciate Dean and Mike Hennigan and value their input greatly as well. And we'll get back together soon and in the next day or so. And I'd like to ask feedback from the court if they have any other questions or comments about, it seems like the general consensus is to move forward with keeping both cores. But are there any other questions anyone has?
I've got a question for Mike, but these guys can get cut
Okay.
if they want.
Hey, Dean and Judge and everyone else, we appreciate it. If y'all want to log off, I'm sure you've got other fish to fry. Thank you.
Yeah, Judge, if I could real quick, I know that the court asked one question of what the cost was, and when you see me fidgeting, I was looking that up. Under the competitive environment, when you bought your redundant core, it was roughly $500,000. So I just wanted to answer that question for the court.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
All right, thank you. Chris, thank you. Judge Taylor, thank you. Dustin, thank you. Dean, thank you. I think you can close off the Zoom right now because I don't think we have anybody else coming in. With that said, Kelly had a question for Mike Hennigan.
Just to understand, because I'm not in the business, so maybe just a small example of what this gives us the capability of doing that we can't do now, and how do we deal with it now? Because I'm guessing, I'm not sure. Just have to explain to me how this all works and why we would need it. And I don't want a big, long detail, but just maybe an example of an emergency or something and how that gets handled now and how this would change it.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm clear on the question. Are we talking about how does it work? What's the benefit of the regional, or how does?
Yeah, the regional. So why do we need to talk to Madison County Police Department?
Basically, that's one of the big pushbacks from the city of Georgetown, is that Georgetown Police has never had a reason to talk to the Madison County Police.
And I'm not saying we don't, but I just wonder why.
Right. But what we're trying to accomplish is not losing contact with our dispatchers. Right now, with the portable radio I carry, I can talk back to my dispatcher from roughly Noah's Ark in Grant County down to maybe Man of War area of Lexington. It's probably a 50-mile straight shot for what we can do. Putting the mobile radio into the process, we add an extra 20 miles on either side.
So what I guess I don't understand is why you or Grant County very often need to talk to somebody, and I don't know, because I'm not part of.
The big thing is, we just had a major tractor-trailer crash last week where Grant County was dispatched to it first and then found out that it was on our side of the line. So we're right up there pushing the limits. If that had been the other way, they had a tractor-trailer crash that required our intervention because of the limited assets that Grant County has, we would be up in that area and still able to communicate with our people, our personnel, as well as talking back to our dispatchers, trying to get the information that we're used to getting on a day-to-day.
How did you handle that this last time? I mean, were you able to communicate, or?
Yes, we were able to communicate without a problem using our current equipment. The regional system would give me an extra 30 miles to the south, somewhere near the Rockcastle County Bridge on I-75. Okay. In any case, it probably would allow me to talk to my dispatcher essentially from Somerset all the way back to Scott County.
I mean, that's great. I just didn't know that was something that we had to do very often.
It's not a high priority, but if police get into a chase, depending on protocols, sometimes they do cross over into other counties. If we had the regional radio position in place and we picked up Jessamine County, possibly Powell County, the people that are currently on the CSEP program, we're just basically increasing our footprint and giving other counties the opportunity to use the high-tech equipment that they may not be able to afford.
Finish answering that, I won't be done.
Okay.
Well, no, you can ask. I think I have a better understanding.
Right. The down and dirty answer is I can't think of a reason specifically that I would need to talk all the way, but it's nice to know that I have that capability if it was there. And if it's not going to cost us a significant amount of money, or if we can,
well, that's kind of the way I feel. If it's not that expensive and we can talk to Madison County Police Department, that's great.
Right.
I don't want to give up one of our cores for $700,000 to be able to do it when I don't know that that's really needed.
Well, and that's my big struggle right now is we're talking about getting a $750,000 check, but what's going to be the long-term expense? We've already contracted for our maintenance agreements. We know that 15 years from now, the radio system will be as state-of-the-art as it can possibly be with all mandated upgrades, firmware, hardware, software. Everything is written into that contract to be improved as the improvements come available.
The contract we have now.
Contract we have now. We've got 5-year warranty on it, and then the next 10 years is a maintenance agreement. So every time a software revision comes available, AMK will come in, update all of our system. So at the 20-year point that they were talking about, we're not expecting a major expense. We may be talking about taking out this console and putting in that console or whatever, but we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater like we had to for this one. We're not going to be dead in the water. We're just going to be looking for 2030 capability instead of 2015 capability.
So let me, it's my job to bring this court the information to the court. And you've heard from the genesis of the ideal of it, but there's been a lot of input and a lot of work done for our current, and TUSA was hired, and a lot of background work, and they're experts in their field. Mike, I trust Mike, and I value his input, and there's a lot of weight in my mind to that, in keeping both our cores here. That's their concerns, both Georgetown and Mike and TUSA, and that's critical to get that across. But I would not be doing my job if I didn't bring this information to the court. So with that said, that's why this discussion took place today. I have full confidence in TUSA, full confidence in Mike, that the system that we have is, a lot of it, and it's state of the art. It's going to serve Georgetown, Scott County very, very well. It does seem like that not selling our core and joining the regional radio network after everything's ironed out would be a path that we might want to pursue. And it seems like the cost for that, for us, there's no cost, I don't think.
The way I understand it, there's no cost for us to join the network. We would be giving up some of the dividends as
if we sold our core,
we would be a 1/3 partner in the system.
But your opinion is it is not worth that right now to go down that road.
That is correct.
And Bill Burke.
I'm a simple kind of guy, and I make a lot of decisions every day involving a lot of money. And I want to ask two questions, okay? Is this better for Scott County, yes or no? Single syllable, one line answer, yes or no?
Is selling the core better, or is the regional radio?
Question.
I'm sorry.
Life, the universe, and everything, okay?
Yes.
Is this better for Scott County, selling our core, joining a regional radio network, especially after all we've been through to get the system we got? Yes or no?
It is not better for Scott County to sell their core.
Thank you. That's a no.
That's a no.
Okay. Is it less expensive than what we're currently paying?
No.
Okay. So I've got two no's. Pretty much tells me everything I need to know.
Now, ask one more question. Mike, would you recommend moving forward and looking at the possibility of joining the regional radio network, but not selling the cores?
Yes. I've been a proponent of that since December. So,
Judge, one other question.
Chad Wallace.
I believe that Sheriff Hampton brought to us a few years ago this program called, I believe it's called Backups, and that we have jurisdiction if we're in a pursuit and we go into different counties, and I think it's all the counties surrounding Scott County.
Yeah.
Is Madison County a part of this?
Chad, I'm not aware of that program. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Gerald, is it?
No, they're not.
Madison County Sheriff and Richmond PD are neither
Are not
part of
part of
backups.
Or Rockcastle.
Okay, so my concern?
I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think that was done prior to you being
It's
here.
kind of an interlocal agreement.
Okay.
Mhm.
But go ahead.
Well, it kind of goes back to Kelly and Bill, but Kelly was looking for an example. And I'm remembering when the current system we're finalizing, I guess, that we started in 2016, talking about, brought us to today with the radios and stuff. In that conversation, maybe Gerald can help me, I thought that, as an example, if we had a sheriff's deputy out of the county going to pick a prisoner, and I think it was an example that was given, with this new system, can't they, if they're out in a county that they can't get back on their radio, aren't they able to use their cell phone to get back into the system? I thought that was talked about. Maybe I'm.
That's a piece that we didn't really build into our system. It was going to be an expensive part
Okay,
to put
so
the
it was talked
LTE
about,
on there.
it didn't happen.
The way our core is designed, there's a certain path into the internet where a person could talk on the radio using their cell phone. There are a certain number of licenses included in our contract, but not enough to make it into a viable option for day-to-day operation.
So it was talked about, but, okay.
Right.
That-
So with
Not an
that,
example, then, we don't have that capability.
with that said, are there any other questions for Mike? So, go ahead, Alvin.
Not a question for Mike, but before we move further, I'd like to hear from the sheriff's department, fire, Chief Fuller, fire, the ambulance service, what do they think? Is it good or bad? I'd just like to hear from them.
Yes, sir.
As
I'll try.
well as GPD.
Yes.
Well, GPD does not want to sell the Corps. They're like Mike. They do not want to, but from my understanding, Georgetown is willing to move forward, and with Dean's, from Tusa's recommendation, with possibly joining the BRRN, but not selling our cores. And that's what I would, at this time, it seems like the will of the court is for me to move forward, get the data, that get a little information to share with the court, like what Alvin just about, with the sheriffs and Scott Fire Department, EMS maybe.
What is the cost of joining?
Nothing.
Right, there's no
They're going
cost.
to pay us $150 because of that microwave shot's already set up.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So here's what my intent to do, and I'm just informing the court of my intent unless someone objects. I intend to move forward with ironing out, as Dean from Tusa recommended, the specifics of what he said here. Tusa recommends the next step for the regionalization project would be Georgetown, Scott County, University of Kentucky, and Madison County meet with AMK and Harris and lay out detailed technical and implementation plan with known costs and risk. So that's my intent, without selling the core and bringing that interlocal. It would essentially be an interlocal to bring back. I shared the interlocal. I don't think that interlocal will change, and I'll double check that. But I would have not been doing my job if I had not brought this to the court. And the court's will needs to be not mine.
But here's the other thing that needs to be a part of that. If you want to, I understand you want to join the regional radio network, and I'm okay with that. But then we also need to have our emergency folks have jurisdiction over Madison County. That's got to be part of the equation.
You'll need to help me.
Okay.
You need to explain that to me and help me navigate that. And Judge Taylor, I'll ask.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that's one aspect that has not been brought to me. So you're educating me on something I'm not aware of.
It was approved before
Okay.
you came.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just say that if you want to, I can explain it now, or we can talk, you all can talk about it.
For the sake of it, let's me and you talk, and then we'll share a narrative with the court and then move from there.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you, and that's the direction I'm going to go. Very good. And then the next item on our agenda, we are going to come back to, we had on our agenda city-county project updates, and Mike, I might ask you to talk about the finalization of our radio project that we're nearing the end of. So if you'll hang loose here with me. We've talked about Great Crossing Dam, tourism lease. There is a typo in there. That Rick Hostler, it should be from August 1 to July, I think 31st. Do you see that typo in there?
Yes,
Brandon?
it's June 30th right now.
I think this is a good idea.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yes.
I like the insurance for tourism, so
Yes.
I'm going to.
You guys step out?
I have a business interest, yes.
All right. So I think this is a good idea. It's going to utilize the old jailers' residence on Water Street. There will be, staff there that will be greeting people, and they'll advertise it as a greeting, welcome center. Lori Saunders feels like it'd be valuable. I would like to recommend the court consider approving the lease proposal. We'll pay the January, February, March utilities. They'll pick up the rest of the year. Right now, we're paying it all. What question do you have, Alvin?
Under the insurance, we talked about them carrying coverage for the contents, but I think we should also carry a liability. They're going to host Star Group, but they're going to bring bus in. They need to be responsible for liability.
Like just a,
Events liability or some type of liability coverage.
I couldn't disagree with that, and that's just something I didn't.
Yeah, I would assume they have some kind now, I don't know that.
We can check it, we can make sure of that.
Probably get us named as additional insured.
We've got green and blue hair growing on the wall down there.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Nope, baby, it's painted and,
We painted it, or do we fix the problem?
no, we painted it. Now, I'm not, in the back, there was a small leak at a water fountain here in the last month.
Okay.
And Tim Tevis and JR have been tackling that, but, in the back, Tim Tevis did mention, he thought around we need to paint a little quick kills. And,
Kills is what you use to paint over a water stand.
well, he said there was JR, is there a kills that prevents mold growth as well?
Yes.
So, in the back only, but in those front rooms and that office, it's all been painted. And JR, you were just down there. It looks good, doesn't it?
Looks good.
And the floors were redone in those front 3 rooms. It's very presentable.
Okay.
And the front porch was also painted as well.
We need to address maybe a little larger question.
Yes, sir.
And I certainly don't mind the jailer's house and, working with tourism. We have a jail down there that is probably a blighted property.
No, there's no probably to it.
Okay.
And,
I was being kind.
yeah. I mean, I would entertain any direction from the court that you'd like me to pursue. If you'd like me to pursue cost to, I think the things that we have discussed are removing lead-based paint from the inside, making sure there's no asbestos from the inside, but then repairing any windows and tuck pointing the exterior brick. That's cost if you're going to make it presentable.
What if we make it a parking lot?
Well, Bill, that's an option that the court could certainly consider. But I believe before we did anything, that we should get input from the community.
I have a question, and Randy, you may be able to help me, but as a landlord, what's our responsibility if this building does have asbestos or lead paint before we lease it to somebody?
The jailer's house is a jail, you're talking about, Kelly.
Jailer-
Separate place.
It's totally separate.
They're separate buildings.
So what we're gonna lease, we know, we've had inspected that it's lead-free and asbestos-free.
I can't certify that it's lead-free, but it was painted.
Well, I'm just asking the question. I don't know.
If you feel like we need to get it checked.
Or you could give them notification.
They can do their own inspection.
All you have to do is just make sure the tenant knows that there's notification, that it was built before 1970 something.
And I'm not aware, but, and somebody help me because this is before my time, but, there was a significant renovation to the jailer's residence.
They
And
knocked out walls, put up
they,
drywall. They did
right,
floor
so
everything.
we might be able to go back, at that point, that could have been done, but it's before my time, so I need to do some research.
Right, and I'm all for it. I just don't want anybody to ever get sick or have issues from something
So-
we leased.
Like I say, I have no problem with leasing this to tourism. I think part of the bigger question is what do we do with the structure behind it?
Well, I would propose then, here's how we move forward. Before we execute the lease, if the court authorizes me to execute the lease, we would get information about is there lead-based paint in the jailer's residence? And then, if not, communicate to you all and then move forward with the lease. The second part of it is, in my mind, is to gather community input about how to move forward with the old jail. And that's my 2 cents, and what options would be there.
I don't think it's historical. I don't think it's community emotional, okay? I know Bernard Palmer was, I put people in that jail. I thought, okay, great, good for you. It's just not one of those things I think we need to invest a lot of money in.
But do you agree that we should get a little input from the community before we move forward?
If we were gonna tear down a structure that had been condemned and was not useful, will we get community input?
But in my opinion, this is a little bit different because some people would come in here and testify that it is a historic building. It's on the historic listing, and we would have to get SHPO's Jared, you tell me if that's right.
Yeah, that group, and then, of course, the group that we had back about a year ago, the Division of Compliance Assistance, that they could give us some guidance to.
So instead of ignoring it, like I've done essentially, so we'll get SHPO and the Division of Clients Assistance to come and present to the court in the next couple months options, and what's one of the options being removal. So you have me.
I just say that I've been involved with this from the city perspective, I can remember tearing down 3 different buildings that were historical in nature, the old hospitals being one, and
Center of town.
the center of town. And how we went about all that, Judge, is we did have discussions at public meetings, at city council or fiscal court. We didn't have special, per se, meetings to talk about it, but whatever route you feel is appropriate. But generally, people who spoke in favor and against was done at a public meeting.
Well, we'll get compliance assistance and SHPO, and then schedule to move forward and have the court have information and then make a decision on how to go forward.
Yeah, that's usually recommended in the process that you're talking about.
Rick?
I've been down there and I just can't remember. Is the property they're gonna lease, is it handicap accessible?
Yes.
I couldn't remember.
Yes. There's a ramp on the side.
What's the typo?
I think the date was a typo. It should be August 1 through July 31st.
We go ahead and we
Well,
do
that's
this.
probably because it's the end of the fiscal year. That would put us in a different fiscal year.
Well, then it needs-
It's okay.
Maybe it needs to start July 1, so.
Well, she had some issues. She had to get it approved by her board, and that's why she put August 1.
Can we leave it June 30th?
Well, you back it off to 11.
Is there any reason we would not be able to lease it until the end of July?
No, I think we can.
So change it to July 31st?
Mhm.
I think I'd be.
And then, Bill, are you making a motion to authorize me to execute the lease?
Yes.
But before, make sure that lead paint questions have been addressed.
It's an old building, and I promise you faithfully, at one time or another, someone has used lead-based paint in there because that's all there was back then.
Yeah.
Now, all that has been stripped out, all that's been painted over, we know that. I don't think we need to do a phase 1 study or anything like that.
I was just wanting to not disregard Kelly's recommendation or concern about the
I thought that.
about the lead base. What's the other?
James said it did not.
What's that?
Do you remember?
Not specifically.
I'll look into that.
We can get some information.
But they did talk to us.
You had mentioned there was a document that.
There's a federal document that you have to let tenants know that this.
Could have lead.
That's all I understand the law is you have to notify them that it was built.
I know on the residential side, obviously, there's a disclosure.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do a phase 1 if we don't have
We could
to.
have to jump off a bridge and do radon testing too.
Yeah, but
We're crazy with
but
this.
I don't want to do that either. But I was just trying to respect the request. I will do a little
Can we just add the disclosure to add a page?
yes, but I'll do a little homework too, Kelly, as well. So there's a motion. Is there a second? Second from Rick Hostetler. Any question?
Can we include the language about the liability?
Yes. So we need to add a stipulation amended to make sure that liability insurance is carried by the tourism. Thank you, Alvin, for reminding me. I didn't intend to forget that. So we have a first, we have a second from Rick Hostetler. Any other questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. And Bill, thanks for bringing up something that needs to be addressed with the
Well,
old
this
jail.
is one of those things that's out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah. So, next, Resolution 20-11, Solid Waste Management Plan. I'm proud to present this and ready to move forward. Rand, would you read this?
Yes, sir.
Can we get the Cliff Notes version, or you can read the whole thing?
I gotta read the whole thing, I think. Get comfortable, try not to snore.
Grab a bag of chips.
Yeah. A resolution amending the 2018 to the 2022 Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan. Whereas the fiscal court of Scott County is the designated governing body for implementation and oversight of the Scott County Solid Waste Management Area and Solid Waste Management Plan initiated a plan amendment pursuant to 401 KER 49011, Section 4.3, through an application to amend area solid waste management plan submitted to the Energy and Environmental Cabinet on March 6, 2019. Whereas the request to amendment the I think it should be to amend the solid waste management plan was approved by the Energy and Environmental Cabinet on March 13, 2019, and whereas public notice was provided on the proposed amendment and a comment period and public hearing were held in accordance with the public information process established by 401 KR 49011, Section 2 for such a plan amendment. Whereas the amendment proposed by the Scott County Area Governing Body would amend the 2018 to 2022 Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan, pages 5 and 6, and whereas the plan amendment proposed for public review and comment, two options. First, to reduce the authorized capacity for in and or out of area wastes in Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan beyond that authorized capacity of which a determination of consistency has previously been provided, or to eliminate authorized capacity for in and or out of area waste in the Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan. And whereas concurrently with the proposal to amend the Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan, Scott County Fiscal Court in its capacity as governing body of the Scott County Solid Waste Management Area published a request for bids from any qualified person for the provision of capacity for disposal of municipal solid waste generated within Scott County for a period of 20 years commencing on July 1, 2019. And whereas two of the responses proposed to provide capacity assurance for Scott County solid waste for a 20-year period at solid waste landfills located outside the county, and whereas discussions with a third responder, which currently operates a solid waste landfill within Scott County, failed to produce an acceptable response to the request for bids, and whereas the fiscal court of Scott County in its capacity as Scott County solid waste area governing body has determined that the best interests of the county and its residents will be served by eliminating capacity for solid waste disposal within the county beyond that for which a determination of the consistency of a solid waste permit application with the solid waste plan has been previously provided remains valid and applicable. Therefore, be it resolved that pages 5 and 6 of the 2018 through 2022 Scott County Solid Waste Management Plan are amended as follows. On page 5 of the 2018 to 22 plan, the existing text of the plan is revised to read as follows. Number 5, describe any proposals for new disposal facilities or expansion of existing disposal facilities, landfill, incinerators, or other approved technologies, etc., during the 5-year update period. The Central Kentucky landfill opened in 2002. In May 2012, Central Kentucky landfill submitted a notice of intent and request for a consistency determination. The notice of intent proposed to expand the landfill facility with a proposed 10-year capacity of 3,948,853 tons and airspace volume 5,251,975 cubic yards. The Energy and Environment Cabinet determined that the permit application, which is a request for consistency determination, had been made and provided by the fiscal court, could not be approved due to a lack of proper zoning affecting a portion of the proposed landfill expansion. Thereafter, Central Kentucky Landfill submitted a different technical application for an expansion that was significantly different from that for which a consistency determination had been requested and provided in 2012. The county, through the Scott County Attorney, alerted the Cabinet to the position of the Scott County Fiscal Court as governing body for the Scott County Solid Waste Management Area that, quote, because the technical application has been substantially revised and changed from the application that had been found consistent with the solid waste plan in 2012, any further processing or review of the permit application should cease until WSB obtain a new determination of consistency for the expansion from the Scott County Solid Waste Management Area governing body. A determination of consistency inconsistency has been adopted by the Scott County Fiscal Court by Resolution 12-03 on May 11, 2012. A reading from that resolution reflects that WSB requested the county, quote, to issue a determination of consistency, unquote, between the then current Scott County Area Solid Waste Plan and the notice of intent dated April 24, 2012. That request for a determination of consistency related to the April 2012 notice of intent for horizontal expansion for permit number 105-00016, application number APE 201-20001, agency interest number 333403. The position of the fiscal court is that the application that the cabinet accepted in 2017 was not the same application for which a determination of consistency was requested of the county and approved by adoption of Resolution 12-03. The design and capacity of the current application differed markedly from that which was initially submitted, reviewed, and sent to public notice. The fiscal court believes that under Chapter 224, a determination of consistency issued with respect to a particular proposal for expansion of a landfill cannot be used as evidence of the fiscal court determination of consistency of a very different subsequent revised permit application. That much is clear from the language of the statute, which provides that no permit to construct or expand a municipal solid waste disposal facility shall be accepted for processing by the cabinet unless the application contains a determination from the governing body for solid waste managed area in which the facility is or will be located concerning consistency of the application with the area solid waste management plan submitted under KRS 224-43-345. On April 17, 2020, the Secretary of the Energy and Environment Cabinet affirmed a hearing officer's report and recommendation that the acceptance of the revised permit application by the Cabinet was in error and directed the Division of Waste Management to deny the technical application and not approve or finalize a related draft permit. In response to that order, a public notice of denial was issued by the Cabinet stating that because the permit application has been denied, the division will take no further action with respect to the application number APE 201-20001. Any expansion application will be required to comply with all applicable statutes and regulations for permit issuance as a new application, including but not limited to KRS 224.40-310 through 224.40-315 and 401 KAR 47-160-47-190. Since the permit application, which the May 11, 2012 determination consistency was requested and granted has been denied, Resolution 12-03 is deemed to be no longer applicable or binding on the fiscal court with respect to future determinations of consistency. KRS 224.43-345 sub 1L requires specific provisions to assure that adequate capacity for a 10-year period shall be available for municipal solid waste generated in the solid waste management area and identification of any additional capacity authorized for disposal of out-of-area municipal solid waste. The Scott County Area Solid Waste Management Plan will rely on capacity assurances provided by Republic Services and Rumpke of Kentucky to meet the obligations of the Area Solid Waste Management Plan pursuant to KRS 224.43-345 sub 1L. No capacity beyond that for which a valid and extant determination of consistency has been previously provided shall be available for disposal of in or out of area solid waste within the Scott County Solid Waste Management Area. 2. All references to capacity authorized for disposal of the municipal solid waste generated in the solid waste management area and additional capacity authorized for disposal of out of area municipal solid waste are revised to conform to this resolution and to provide 0 tons of capacity for disposal of municipal solid waste within Scott County beyond that for which a valid and extant determination of consistency has previously provided. 3. A copy of this resolution and the amended text of the 2018 to the 2022 Scott County Area Solid Waste Management Plan shall be submitted for review and approval to the Cabinet in accordance with 401 KAR 49011.
Any questions or comments?
Judge, I have one question. So with this resolution, in the paragraph right before subsection 2, where it says our capacity assurances are provided by Republic and Rumpke, what impact does that have on free dump day? Does that, by passing this resolution, does that eliminate free dump day because we are determining that WSB will not be providing capacity assurance anymore for Scott County?
Chad, by passing this resolution, we are effectively saying that we do not authorize disposal of solid waste in Scott County. I believe that's the correct way to state that.
Now, I think in our discussion, you correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, there's a potential if we go some other route with someone who has a transfer station in the county, you could have a dump day there. Is that right?
There could be a possibility with a transfer station such as Rumpke that if the court wanted to pursue that with Rumpke, that would be something that could be pursued.
Well, and I'm all for going down that
Yes,
path, but I want to know what the impact is going to be.
Well, what we're doing is, we are no longer going to authorize disposal of solid waste in Scott County.
And that doesn't take place until their current permitted capacity.
That is my understanding, at the conclusion of their current permitted capacity.
Okay.
Now, go back to your concern about the free dump day. Because of concerns about what we have as the existing host agreement with WSB, we sent a letter to WSB notifying them of our concerns and a desire, if we move forward in essentially addressing those concerns in a new host agreement. Is that the best way to say it, Rand?
Yeah, I think that's accurate, yes, sir.
And since that point, we have not received any of the tipping fees that are as part of that agreement. And we have, pardon?
Well, the previous agreement.
Right. And if you added that up right now, it would be over $250,000. And at some point, we're going to have to decide how to deal with that.
Well, and also
And the free dump day is part of that host agreement. And with the COVID-19, they have made announcements because of COVID concerns, and we have no control over that. But we have, they have made announcements that they're not going to offer that. And Jared, can you share with the court any updates of any other announcements that you've seen about going forward with that?
I haven't seen anything else. And they were delayed because of the COVID, which is understandable there.
And they've made announcements that due to the COVID-19 event, they were not going to offer that service. But we can certainly inquire, but.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that they haven't, they've had, I don't know, we're in June, we've had 6 days, and probably they haven't honored half of them. Probably have only had 2 or 3. I think one, there was weather, they said COVA. So I just wanted to see the.
Yes, sir.
I'd be curious as to whether that's by executive order from the governor or whether that's their own decision. Because you can go to Lowe's, but you can't go to the dump.
I am not aware of any executive order on the state level that will prohibit that activity from taking place.
Now, for a couple of months, that was a normal protocol with all waste facilities across the state of Kentucky.
But I do think that it's, it is imperative that we do move in a direction as far as possibly offering that service with a possible transfer station in Scott County.
We'll look forward to see how to navigate that. Is there a motion to accept the resolution? Rick Hosteller makes a motion to accept the resolution as presented. I see a second from Mr. Livingston. Is there any other question or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. Electrical inspection vehicle surplus, shared that document with you. Is there any questions about that? Motion to approve as presented. Is there a second? Second from Kelly Corman. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Detention center vehicle surplus as presented. Any questions or comments? Is that a motion to accept as presented? I'd like to, Mr. Hosteller with the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wallace. Any other question or discussion on the detention center vehicle surplus? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 13, county road golf cart usage. This was brought up to us earlier in the spring. I'm sorry.
EMA contract.
Oh, I'm sorry. EMA contract, weather siren maintenance. Mike, you're still here. Thank you.
Just requesting permission for the judge to sign the maintenance contract. contract has remained the same for 15 years with Whitlock Electric. He goes out and checks the sirens at least twice a year, makes sure the batteries are up to speed, everything is working. At his request, I actually investigated whether or not there was other companies that could provide that service, and their bids were at least twice, if not 3 times as much as his. So,
What do they do? I was curious, it did seem expensive to me, but I don't know what they do.
again, it's going to 22 different locations, testing the motherboard, making sure that the radios are communicating with it. It's got 4 12-volt deep cycle batteries that actually powers the unit, making sure that those batteries are still able to take a charge, if not replacing them. So, yeah.
And he does it twice a year?
Twice a year per siren, plus whatever I ask him to do. We had the siren get struck by lightning at the Toyota plant. He's been there probably 4 or 5 times, trying to get everything back up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, what was it, $6,000 each time or something?
Yeah, $56.70 per year. And like I said, there's a company in Indiana that does it for Northern Kentucky. They said that they could do it for us for a little over $12,000.
Motion for approval.
Motion, is there second? Second for Mr. Lyons. Any other questions? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm sorry, now back to the golf cart usage on county road discussion. This was brought to us, and I value any input from Magistrate Wallace, but I felt like it was important to get community feedback, and we did that through a survey online with Facebook. Had approximately 250 responses, and then I received 40 plus emails. In regards to the emails, 98% of those were not in favor of a countywide ordinance, and very strongly against it. And then looking at the survey, the questions on the survey, I live in a rural residential area in Scott County. Like 94% of the people responded were in a rural residential area. And then of the 251 responses, it was on a sliding scale from 1 to 100. I would support, and it came in right at about 55%. I don't call that a groundswell of let's change things, what we're doing. Number 3, a homeowners association should request permission from the court to allow residents to use golf carts. It was a sliding scale of 0 to 50, or 0 to 5, and the vast 46% of that, is the way I'd read it, wanted the homeowners association to request that. And then the Scott County Fiscal Court should consider a countywide ordinance. Of the 240 or 251 answered responses, there was, again, about 55% were saying yes to pursue that. I just, looking at the emails, looking at the survey, at this time, I don't think there is a groundswell of people that want us to change the way we've doing it. And what historically we've done, from what I can gather from Mr. Wallace, is if a neighborhood HOA wants to allow golf carts on county roads in their residential area, they have came to us with a resolution and requested that. It is my opinion that we would continue to do that and leave that type of request to the HOA, and really more citizens get input when we do that. Yes, sir.
Judge, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I live in a subdivision that has a golf course. And every day God sends me, I come home, I'm dodging 12 and 13-year-olds driving golf carts. And they don't have lights, they don't have horns, they don't have brake lights. We need to put some parameters on this, that before you come to us, understand any operator of a golf cart on a county road will be a licensed driver. They will have headlights, they will have turn signals, they will have brake lights and a horn. I think those are things we need to put in something.
So if a
For us
HOA,
somehow.
going forward, if an HOA comes to us, we need to make sure we have that,
Yes.
okay.
We could probably just send them a copy of the statute and say, if it's gonna happen, here's what it'll look like, because all that's contained in the statute.
Yeah, I've got to tell
And then-
you, it's,
And-
it is absolutely, when COVID-19 was really hot and heavy and kids weren't going to school, oh my God, it was like Coney Island, I tell you, every day.
Well, I will do this, Bill. I'll reach out to our colleagues at GPD and ask them, if they could, give us some assistance there.
Well, I think, I got tagged because I'm a magistrate, and I said, you understand, we're in the city limits, and I really have very little I can do here. But you have an HOA that has an email address and a mailing address for every member of this neighborhood. Let the HOA send out a letter saying, these are the requirements, and you must live by this. And I gotta tell you, that solves an awful lot of the problem, but we still see a guy driving down a road with his 11-year-old daughter driving a golf cart in the middle of the highway, in the middle of the road at 9 o'clock at night, and you run up on behind him and you think, oh my God, he didn't even have a rearview mirror. He didn't even know you're back there. I think we need to lay some requirements down on what it is that constitutes a legal golf cart on a county road.
Going forward, make sure
If
that,
an ordinance does it, or the federal requirements,
Yeah, the state
I'm all
statute.
game for that.
Does the statute also apply to a city road?
Yeah, I think the city has adopted, I believe, a
the
golf.
city
cart
has a
ordinance.
golf cart policy, or ordinance, better
But
word.
yeah, but the statute sets out all those things, you gotta have a placard and insurance and licensed driver and,
So let me review what the city has, and then we'll go back from there. But like right now, what I'm saying is, I am not in favor of moving forward with a countywide ordinance. What I am in favor of is leaving it, if an HOA wants to pass a resolution that they'd like to have that considered in their neighborhood, then that HOA can come to us, and we will make sure that we lay those
The last thing
out.
I want to do is meet a golf cart at 11 o'clock at night on County Road.
Yep, I agree.
Just to add, the reason why I even went this route was because I knew that there were golf cart usages in subdivisions that I represent. Actually, a few weeks ago, there was a golf cart parade in one of the subdivisions that I represent.
he was a grand marshal.
Well, it was led by the sheriff's office. But with that being said, I brought it here because I thought, hey, it's happening anyways. And so that's why we should entertain looking at it as an ordinance. But it appears that maybe the best route to go is to have HOAs bring it to us and let us entertain it on every incident.
And our law enforcement have a lot of responsibilities, and yeah, it's an issue, but I don't want to add another thing.
In the scheme of things,
Yeah.
golf carts in Kenwood is probably just as high priority as swimming at Great Crossings. I mean, it's just not one of those
I didn't say
things Okay?
It's important to some people though, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, all right. So with that said, we'll move on. 14 does require some action, and I'm appreciative of Anderson Communities and their offer to construct the entrance that the cul-de-sac that I shared with you all, and the potential uses that it could be used for a future parking area, pickup area, for a soccer complex, concession stand, bathroom that we've discussed that could happen in the future. Please know I just said could. We'd have to navigate, going forward. But if that's in place and they're willing to do it, it would definitely be a plus. I shared that drawing with you all, and I'm very appreciative of Anderson Communities and their willingness to do that. Are there any questions about that proposal?
It doesn't hold the county to any future promises.
No. Everything we have discussed are potential projects. Would you agree with that statement, Mr. Walsh? You've
Yes.
been greatly involved.
Yeah,
You've been in every meeting about that.
Just appreciate Brian Roach and,
Yes,
and
yes.
their pursuance with Anderson Communities to make this happen. And I think
I would second that.
it will help, hopefully, traffic go from when you're in Lyle Road complex, they don't have to go back on Lyle Road to come down 25 or come down Lemons Mill to get to.
Right now, that's just that's just a dead end.
Right,
And they would propose, if they ever got the funding.
Yeah.
And they would like the court to consider, connecting that with the Lyle Road entrance.
That's right.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Since that's within the city, that area is within the city limits, well, where the cul-de-sac would be, or the entrance, is that within the limits?
City limits
limits.
ends, right, at Lemons Mill Elementary and the townhouses that sit in front.
So it's not been annexed in and picked up?
Lyle Road complex is, I don't believe it's in the
Not
city.
the complex, but like where the entrance would be?
It's in the
That's
city.
what I'm asking.
But this has been taken to P and Z for
Okay,
consideration.
Okay, that's what I was.
No,
that's what I was
it's been
asking.
shared.
I just want to make sure we weren't approving something that,
Oh, no, they've
No.
okay, yeah.
And maybe a motion should say, but it has been shared at P and Z. It's in the process. The motion should be to accept the proposed construction and the donation of the construction of it, subject to P and Z approval.
But it would be in the county.
It'd be in the county, but the parks,
It's on, that parcel belongs to the Scott Fiscal Court.
yeah, but I believe Parks and Recreation are the ones who actually will scrape it and do snow removal as far as that goes. If that's the question you're asking.
Well, I think that's what you were asking. Is it city
Well, I
or
was
county?
I mean, I didn't know where the road ends in the city limits versus, because that road obviously has a stub to it already.
Yeah.
So where the road ends, is that stub in the county or in the city limits that they're gonna be extending out to make that entrance? But if it's already been to P and Z, if P and Z is approved, if that's.
Yeah, it's been to P and Z.
Takes care of that concern.
But I can't say it's completely approved, but
Okay.
the motion will be subject to approval by P and Z, that we accept and approve the construction of that entrance as presented.
That's your motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Mr. Livingston, a second from Mr. Wallace. Any other question or discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And then finally, city-county project updates. I shared a email from our colleague Andrew Hartley at the city, and just trying to give an update. And Rick Hostetler pointed out, like to have an update, and I think a few of the rest of you as well. And I shared that, and Mike's here. Mike's our resident expert. Mike, can you just give us a like a 2-minute update on where the radio project is, and how close are we to finalization there?
With two cores. Now we're at the 1 yard line. We're about to push it over into the goal. The appointment has been made for July 14th to do the final walkthrough. The people from TUSA, Chief Swanigan, myself are all going to visit each transmitter tower, make sure that we're approving the cores and how they operate. All the radios are in the positions that they're supposed to be. Basically, there's it's about a 7-hour operation to do our punch list, check down, make sure that we're all satisfied that the boxes have all been checked. Having said that, there are still some things that are pending but not required for the end of the project. We've got the Zetron system, the station alerting for fire department. It's dependent on an internet service for the fire stations. Therefore, we've got it working from a radio standpoint, but it's not at full capacity because Station 2 and Station 4 don't have sufficient internet backbone to support the radio system. I believe that your radios are being installed now, or if they just made an appointment?
Tuesdays,
Okay.
next Tuesday.
There were three agencies that were waiting on installations: the jail, county roads, and city public works. As you just heard, they're coming Tuesday to start doing the installations for county roads. Jail has all of their portables, but waiting on installations of mobiles. And Public Works is supposed to be getting installed today, so.
So one thing that Jailer Broyles shared with me, and back in the winter, I don't know exactly when, but we had to kind of do a look at what had been requested, and we tried to look at the requests, and then kind of almost needed to do some cutting and some edits. And in that conversation, originally, you correct me if I'm wrong, the jailer had asked for 40 radios, but in the conversation was, well, they would have a maximum of 20 or so on staff at the time, and we could possibly move to cut back to 20. But then the jailer actually asked, hey, instead of having 20 of the more expensive radios, could we have 40 of the less expensive radios and every officer have one that's theirs? Well, what happened and what Andrew Hartley communicated to me was that the more expensive 20 had already been ordered, and that's why that the jailer currently has 20 of the more expensive radios.
Correct.
And they have multiple battery chargers and multiple battery. You want to speak to that? And then,
Sure.
And then part of the maintenance is if one of those battery breaks, we need a new battery, it's paid for.
Correct. That's correct. Basically, it was kind of a flip-flop. We ordered 44 of the expensive radios. Then there were some change orders that came from the vendor asking for a pretty substantial amount of money on top of what we've already agreed. So Andrew and the judge and myself sat down and started talking about, first of all, are we going to pay this $200,000 overage? And if not, where are we going to start talking about cutting and, sharpening our pencil, so to speak? So that's where the jail got down to, 20 radios, 3 6-bank chargers for batteries, extra earpieces and belt clips and all that. The follow-up to that meeting was the recommendation from the jailer that, instead of doing the expensive radios, he would take the cheaper radios. But the vendor pushed back and said the contract has already been submitted. We've ordered 909 radios. There's no way to.
Yeah, that was the end of it. So, but we do have the maintenance agreement that if any batteries, if issues arise, that'll take care of it. And then the one question that we need to make sure, Jailer Broyles also brought up that his channel 1 was not encrypted.
That's correct.
And what has been shared is that in the fall, there will be an update. And in the fall, when that update occurs, that then every single radio will get that update, and it'll make the encryption of his channel 1 permissible. So right now, he's operating off channel 2. And so can you help me make sure we get that done for Jailer Broyles?
We will definitely do that, but that's what I explained to the jailer as well, that we programmed his channel 1 to be unencrypted because it's essentially an interoperable channel. If fire department needs to talk to him or his people are out on the road and, with having half of our system encrypted and half not, it wasn't reasonable to encrypt his radio and make it so that only law enforcement could talk to his deputies on the road. He agreed that that was not the way he wanted it to work, but again, we'd have to touch 909 radios in order to make his channel encrypted. So when we do that update in the fall, and we are actually touching all 909 radios, we will change that to make channel 1 encrypted, and people that don't have encryption in their radios just will not be able to talk to him on channel 1. You have to go to one of the mutual channels.
900 radios?
That's correct, between mobiles and portables, station
City,
radios, and,
What other questions anyone have?
Not really a question, but a comment. First of all, I'm gonna back up just a little bit. I know we're past our 2 minutes you gave us.
I'm sorry.
But Chad actually brought this kind of to my attention, or to the court's attention, month or 2 months ago when we were talking about joining the city on a grant application, another project. And Chad brought up 2 or 3 outstanding. He just brought that up as a conversation. I got thinking about that and I came to you. And I appreciate Chad doing it. I appreciate you, Judge, reaching out to the city, Mr. Hartley, and then that's when he came up with this. So there's a number. Well, there's a number of projects on here. Quite frankly, I have to be honest, I had forgotten about a couple of them. But it looks like most of them are well on their way. And when I saw the radio project and also the sewer project, those are the 2 big ones that are still out there with a lot going on. And the radio project in particular, when Andrew said, or Mr. Hartley said that 3 agencies didn't have any radios installed yet, I thought, wow, that's weird. So I won't fill in all the details, but I had a conversation yesterday, several with you, and then one yesterday with Mike. And what was bothering me was, all I care about, and I think the court will agree, I just wanted us to get our money's worth. And this fluctuating number of radios that I was hearing about from the jail, and maybe even from the road department, different ones, Mike was able to kind of clear that up, and I wanted to share that because Bill said 909 radios. That's what I was doing. I was going, how many radios are we supposed to get? Da-da-da. And so Mike cleared that up, and we've already talked a little bit about it. This thing started in 2016.
Right.
It started the conversation, and so the numbers started back then. Well, we all know that all departments have increased, but the number I think that they quoted, now correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to be wrong in stating this, but we're going to go back a ways to a number that they thought we needed at that time, but every agency's grown a little bit, some more than others maybe, and we got to include not only the county agencies, or county departments or whatever, sheriff and so forth, but the city departments, they're all growing a little bit, but they were operating off of 900 and
The initial RFP, the radio committee that started this in 2016 went to each department and said, how many cars do you have? How many people do you have? How many radios will you need? And some departments put in a little bit of a cushion, thinking that by the time we rolled this out, they would have extra employees. Other departments gave us a real-time number. I've got 44 cruisers on the road. I've got this many deputy or whatever, and those were the numbers we ordered based on what each department asked for. As because this has been a 4-year process, departments have grown. People have been added. Departments have been added. We didn't put animal control in there. We didn't intend to have certain segments, like there was a question whether or not we would support the volunteer fire department. We've tossed this back and forth 100 different ways, and so bottom line is we ordered what we thought we needed in early 2018, and then we had to go back halfway through and sharpen our pencil a little bit, and a couple of portables got lost here and there, but everything that the contract calls for is what the county, what the benefit for getting for our money.
And I value Mike's input, and I appreciate his efforts. So on that, the Walmart right in, right out, if there's no other questions about the radio project, I'll move on. That's moving forward. We've got an invoice, and I think we forwarded that payment for that invoice to get the thing started because it had to be paid to get it started. And then Cardinal Drive improvements, you can read there. I think that's still, in the works and not near finalization yet. The South Sewer project, as you can read there, a lot of engineering work has been done and construction cost remains. But most of that engineering has been done through that grant that years ago was transferred to this project. And shared that with you. And then the Lanes Run Business Park, essentially, the project's essentially complete. There is a final punch list with items and cleanup, but, it's moved quite a bit. Now, what questions would anybody have or want me to get further information about? And I will try to do a every couple months update.
On the sewer extension, where is that with regards to money that is left or potential request for additional money?
You know, what was shared with me was payments that's been made to Hazel and Sawyer regarding the South Sewer extension. I think that's the engineering. Has been $1,369,000. And then the rest of the expenses have been covered by the KIA grant we received a while back, and any balance will have covered by other parties such as private owner, LFUCG, Sky Canyon Fiscal Court, and the city. What did y'all help me understand, because this is prior to my time? Did the court commit $250,000 to the project?
Engineering study along with Lexington also, so it was
Yeah.
a group effort to do the study.
Yeah.
I think the $1 million that David's probably thinking about is the reservoir.
Did
grant years ago,
those-
that got transferred, was allowed.
From what-
KIA to help with the overall project.
And from what I understand, those funds have been expended on the engineering portion.
And is KIA, was that a grant or was that a low-interest loan?
It said KIA grant.
I
That's
thought
what
it was a low-interest
Yeah.
loan,
I think it's a loan, but I wouldn't.
like a really low
Yeah,
interest,
it's-
like below 1% or right around 1%.
I'll try to get clarification.
I think it was a 20-year loan, actually.
I think our main commitment was the engineering study and of course the permission of the transfer of the grant that was part of the reservoir.
So who's paying for the construction?
I have not been approached about any of that. Was that something that was a discussion before I became judge?
Yeah. My understanding is that there's this grant that the city is going to take out with KIA, and that, I don't know, somehow it's shared between Georgetown Water and the city of
Low
Georgetown.
interest loan as well.
Yeah.
And the park owner.
And
And
the
the
park
park
and the
owner.
park owner.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there'll be tap-on fees for anybody who is existing along the sewer line route that they want to tap on. They can, that's how they will pay for it as well.
Would you like me to inquire, try to get any additional information? All right.
The only thing, going back to, I think Gary, you called it a study or whatever, this, I'm hoping they spent almost 1.4 million. I hope it's the design and everything.
That was all on engineering, and
Golly.
so
I don't know how long is that line? Maybe ain't
I don't have it exactly.
Million worth,
What's that?
1.3 million long.
So with that said, I will try to get an update on that, and if there's any other questions, just let me know. I appreciate your all's time, and with that said, is there a motion to adjourn? Bill Burke, is there a second?
Second.
Kelly Corman, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.